Champagne Joy walked into our offices with her bright turquoise hair. I knew that this woman had something to teach us about beauty. Not that outward kind of beauty, the kind that we all see, but the strength to find oneself and embrace who you are. Champagne Joy is an amazing young woman. She has shown us this time and time again. It's very important for all of our patients to know, whether they're going through treatment or are survivors, that you may not look exactly the same as you did before you started treatment, but you're still beautiful. Right, Champagne? Champagne showed us this many times, from her Marie Antoinette wig during her chemo sessions to the return of what I see today is her bright turquoise hair, complete with hot pink piece and hot pink flower, to her skull earrings, to her Japanese kimonos. Champagne Joy has shown us an example of how she's embraced her beauty and the power of her beauty. And I think that you'll feel that today when she comes to talk to you right now. So please join me in welcoming today's special speaker, Champagne Joy.
Good afternoon. On November 10th, 2010, I walked into my doctor's office, a young, successful, happy, healthy woman. I walked out a cancer patient. I was diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer, and as we were trying to process that news, we were totally unaware of what else would be lost along the way. I began my treatment path with a preeminent breast care center in Westchester County, New York. In short order, my husband Michael and I were told what would become of things. 4 rounds of chemo, a mastectomy, and I was encouraged to have a double while I was at it. My lymph nodes removed, 4 more rounds of chemo, daily radiation, and then a lifetime of drugs, however long a lifetime meant anymore. When the surgeon we had seen called to say that I had a hormonally responsive cancer, it was me who figured out that we had also just gotten the news that there would be no children. When I tried to discuss this with that doctor, he pretty much shut me down. His only conversation was about my cancer, not about me. This was reality, a harsh one. This was nothing like those TV cancer doctors who were all compassionate, involved, and handsome. Where was my Dr. Wilson from the show House? Then the oncologist we had seen called to say that I didn't have enough money or enough insurance to have this disease. Though I had been toured through his lovely chemo suite in preparation for treatment, I was now going to have to get my treatment off-site in a place that would take my paltry coverage and forgive the rest. So 3 days before Thanksgiving, I had my first dose of chemo at a prison hospital. And I was the only patient who wasn't in handcuffs. Additionally, my take-home drugs were slightly expired and would have to be scrounged for just before each and every treatment with no guarantee that they'd get them all. This was when we started to understand that this disease would also totally ruin us financially, and that the ability to heed advice about keeping your stress levels down would be impossible. At that point, I got a call from my dear friend of many years, Mira Sorvino. Yes, that Mira Sorvino. Like everyone, upon hearing the news, she asked what she could do to help. Mira then said that she had been the keynote speaker at the Rose of Hope Luncheon for a breast cancer center in Connecticut and could call them on my behalf. She said that she had instantly bonded with someone there named Donna Twist, and that she knew if anyone could help me, it would be this woman. As I needed a second opinion anyway, I asked her to please call them for me, though I wasn't expecting much. That's when Norma Freem Breast Care Center's executive director, Dr. Donna Twist, despite being a total stranger to me, rallied all of her resources and entered my life. Meeting Donna, even in an email on Thanksgiving, felt like being reunited with a lost loved one. More emails would come that weekend, which is how we met nurse navigator extraordinaire Sally Casella. The breast center where we had started my treatment had never even heard of nurse navigators. And in between all of the information I was receiving from these two ladies, there was something else coming through. It was hope. So my darling husband, Michael, and I trooped off to see the doctors at the Norma Freem Breast Care Center, whom Donna had somehow convinced to come in on their days off, and were astonished by everything we saw. The first thing I marveled at was the waiting room, full of smiling, laughing women. I was practically offended, like, hey, how could you be laughing? I have cancer. Until I realized that I wanted to say to them, how could you be laughing? You have cancer. Here were people with cancer, serious cancer. And they're talking and laughing and hugging each other and hugging the staff and exchanging recipes. I mean, in the last place I was lucky not to get shivved, and here they're offering me tea and a shawl. Then we met the amazing breast surgeon, Dr. Mary Pronovost. After realizing that her alma mater was where my husband's father was a professor for 30 years, I mentioned these things because the signs along the way that we were getting on the right path meant everything. And then we moved on to a long, hard discussion about my health. 2 points quickly emerged. Dr. Pronovost would give us all the information you could ever absorb, and she kept talking about choices. Unlike the surgeon I had seen who shared nothing and dictated the events and their order, Mary, and yes, believe it or not, I found a place where the patients call their doctors by their first names. Mary talked about how I should decide what I want. Maybe I could get all the chemo out of the way up front and avoid the thought of having to go back to chemo after a mastectomy. Maybe I could pursue a breast conservation. According to this doctor, it was up to me. There was no presumption that she would dictate and I would follow. And that choice and the concept of choice meant everything when you find yourself in a horror, not of your making, and of this magnitude. Along with Dr. Pronovost came Dr. Anka Ott-Young, plastic surgeon. From the first time you meet her, you are reassured that if you can make it through this, she'll make you the best that you can be. Next up was oncologist Dr. Neil Fishback. Again, we were flooded with information. Again, there was talk of choices. As we sat and talked, he made me feel like the only person that mattered. When we got to the topic of the treatment and its consequences on our family options, Neil looked totally stricken as he mourned my very early menopause. It's not that the news was better, but like the first rule of comedy, it's all in the delivery. That sympathy and understanding alone made us want him to be my oncologist. When he stepped out of the room, I turned to Michael and said, "We just met my Dr. Wilson." I was sold. Until one knows there's a better way, you just accept the slings and arrows that you're dealt. At Norma Freem, I was treated like family, not a second-class citizen. Now we saw what treatment could be like, what doctors can be like, that these people, all of them, were going to get in the trenches with us and fight for my survival. We realized that to stay in treatment in New York meant death, and that if we could only get the center to take me on as a patient, despite the money and the insurance issues, there was a chance. We had seen what this other breast center had to offer, and it was bleak. We asked Dr. Fishback what could be done, and he said it was time for a little Donna Twist magic. She did indeed wave her magic wand and get the center's fine doctors to treat me. My care has been and continues to be exemplary. My doctors, their staffs, Donna, her staff, all became family to us. Recently, Donna Twist was at an event of mine, and a friend of mine said, "Thanks for coming such a long way." And she said, "Of course, Champaign is family." The atmosphere from the chemo chair to the hospital room is warm, loving, and oozing with hope and true expectations of a healthy future. They anticipate your every need and provide care, service, and an abundance of ancillary practitioners to meet them. This is a medical practice in which every person involved gives of themselves limitlessly. Remember, hear the halls echo with laughter, not wails of despair. I've already told you about the things I lost. Now let me tell you about the things I've gained. What I found out is that you can't just live to live. You must live for what you love. When you're sick and vying to survive, you yearn for the people and places that comprise your heart. Therefore, life means a different thing to each of us. And when a person with cancer proclaims, "I want to live," it is a unique slideshow flashing in that patient's imagination, and they don't know what those images are until they're in a life and death struggle. Only now do I know what mine are. It's time for me to integrate my real life and my cancer life. When you're in that first year of treatment, every moment is cancer, or as I was oft heard saying, cancer is a full-time job. There is nothing else. You're either going to, coming from, sick from, or recovering from a treatment. You can't plan anything beyond that very moment. The baldness and vomiting alone is time-consuming, trust me. You measure out life in seconds and minutes, but that was last year. Now I take life in weeks and months. This cancer thing is not easy, and you cannot do it alone. You need everybody you can get. I'm very lucky. I have my amazing husband, Michael. My family, my mother and sister are here today. My friends, and Mira Sorvino, and Twisty, Donna Twist, and Dr. Neil Fishback, and Dr. Mary Pronovost, and Dr. Anka Ott-Young, and all of the chemo nurses, and the assistants. I have them all. And I also have you. You are a huge part of this. Each of you who have made this possible in the past and will make it possible going forward. As you see me alive and going on to do great things, think to yourself, it may have been my money that saved that woman. These people have saved my life, and with your help, they will save others like me. Ask yourself, was I worth saving? If the answer is yes, then please lend your support to this great center. Thank you.
Champagne joy, ladies and gentlemen.